YouTube AI is here to help. Kind of. X's AI is getting an image upgrade. LinkedIn is giving us a weird profile option. Instagram is allowing us to schedule our DMs, and poor TikTok is still in trouble, this time across the pond in the EU. This is the Act 18 show. Hey everyone, I'm Jason, faith-based entrepreneur, marketing geek. Timestamps and sources below, along with a link to today's sponsor, our funnel launch kit. It has our top performing funnel pages, email sequence, and course framework to help you go from idea to sales in just a few days using 100% free software. Check that out in the description below to launch and sell your next idea. Now, a quick little personal, editorial note as we dive in here. I've been doing a lot of reflection, as most of us do at the end of the year, and I realized that this show has kind of drifted into a lot of policy and politics, mostly because the social media platforms we all use to reach our customers are constantly embroiled in these types of either fines or rule changes. But the issue is these policies affect how we're going to communicate and grow our businesses next year, not necessarily next week. And so what I'd like to do is shift focus back to kind of what I originally wanted this podcast to be all about, which is updates and insights that are going to impact us in the next few weeks, not the next few years. And so we'll be trying and shift that content. But if you are watching or listening, please comment below. Let me know what stories have been helpful and what hasn't. Any feedback would be awesome as we go into 2025, trying to make this the best show possible so you can stay updated with what's going on with socials and conversion strategies, and then just get back to life and building your business, right? So that being said, speaking of life and building businesses, building YouTube channels, we have quite a few AI updates when it comes to YouTube. First, really quick, eventually on LinkedIn, you're going to be able to update your banners. So you're going to be able to have 5 banners, and every 3 seconds they will rotate. I'm not sure how this is going to help or why LinkedIn thought this would be a good idea. But hey, just a quick update there before we get to the front story here, which is all of the YouTube AI. Now, YouTube has had a couple of AI updates for us. Some are just updates on previous announcements. But this first one I really want to quickly go through. You can opt out of allowing your videos to be trained by other AI models. This seems kind of like too little too late. We all know that every AI company out there scraped the internet, including YouTube, a while back before we even knew what was going on. But inside of your Creator Studio, you can go to here, Settings, Channel, Advanced Settings, and you can scroll down, and there will be an option to essentially opt into AI training. So if you're feeling super altruistic and you really want your videos to be a part of training AI models, so big corporations can make billions of dollars off your hard work, then you can go ahead and, check those boxes. If not, just leave them unchecked. And by default, YouTube will not share your data directly with these AI companies. Although, let's be real, everything's been scraped. So I don't really see how this is preventing much of anything. I think this is more of just legal covering their behinds when it comes to YouTube. Now, an AI feature that I was hoping would actually be helpful to us wound up not being, falling totally flat. So this is the new Inspiration tab inside of Creator Studio. So if you go to Content and you see all your video lists of videos, right next to that, you can actually click on the Inspiration tab, and you'll be able to use YouTube AI to come up with content ideas, content outlines, thumbnails, and all the rest, everything to create your videos. The only problem is when I finally got access to this tool, I have a little GIF or GIF here of what it looked like in my dashboard. The examples it gave were super generic, super obvious, because it just looked at my videos and said, hey, these videos do well, so just make more of them. Thanks, YouTube. And then when I went in to see what it came up with for the content outlines for those, in this instance, I chose consulting business mistakes or something like that. and the advice was super, super generic. So I was like, okay, great. So not only are blogs full of AI sludge, now YouTube's going to give us more great cutting edge AI so we can turn around and parrot generic advice in our YouTube videos. So I definitely don't recommend using this at all. I think the other AIs that are out there in terms of Gronk, I personally use GPT a lot. I know a lot of people like using Claude, will do a much better job of helping you come up with content ideas. And YouTube's own tools when it comes to looking at the keywords that are performing well for your channel and just looking at your top performing videos and figuring out how you can make deeper dives of those are going to be a much better route to take when it comes to what's the next video I should make. And especially I was disappointed with the images. This is clearly something where YouTube just took their Gemini model, they slapped it into the YouTube interface because nobody would use any of these images for thumbnails. So disappointing to say the least. And until they do a lot of work, I would just skip it altogether. Now, the next YouTube AI update we have is kind of going to affect us depending upon how you use AI in your videos. So YouTube is partnering up with another company that has massive amounts of data, and they're going to try and protect celebrities and important YouTube figures from being copied by AI. So this definitely does not apply to you unless you have hundreds of millions of subscribers or you're considered a celebrity by YouTube. Now, I really think what this whole little story is about is YouTube is just stepping in front of any litigation they're going to have to deal with record labels, because as you may or may not know, record labels are incredibly protective of their songs. And while there's not an exact policy change here, just reading through YouTube's blog post about this, they're even going to go after songs that sound similar to popular songs. So it's okay for record labels to copy paste pop stars and pop groups and use the same 4 chords in all of their popular songs. But if you do it with AI, then it's definitely not okay. So just keep that in mind if you are creating music using AI. YouTube is eventually going to try and figure out how close your AI generated music is to a popular song. And then the record label could copyright claim your video, even though it's not their song. It just sounds similar, so close enough, record label collects a check. I think this is really, again, this is just YouTube trying to protect itself from being sued by record labels, because they do need record labels' music to compete with TikTok. Shorts are very important to YouTube right now when it comes to competing with other platforms. So they want to keep the source of all that music, aka the record labels, very happy. So just big warning, if you are creating AI music, make sure that you're careful with how close your song might sound to a popular one that you may or may not be copying. Lastly, on the YouTube AI updates, we have AutoDubbing is finally rolling out. So YouTube announced this a couple months ago, I guess I should say a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago. And inside of your settings here, I made sure to include this. You can go to inside your Creator Studio, go to Settings, Upload Defaults, Advanced Settings, and then scroll down. You'll see an automatic dubbing, and you can turn it on or off. So unlike opting into AI training, YouTube has automatically opted you into having your videos auto-dubbed. And this is for videos moving forward. So they're not going to go back and start auto-dubbing all the content that's already uploaded to YouTube. I'm sure that would be an absolute nightmare, and they'd need more than one nuclear power plant to power AI to do that for all the videos. So just keep that in mind moving forward. I haven't seen any sort of good reports or examples of how well the auto-dubbing is working. So for the most part, unless you're really concerned, I would probably just leave it alone, because it's going to be an automatic option. And it will be very interesting to see how this plays out, because we're going to probably start getting more comments in languages we don't understand. So hopefully YouTube will also recognize that and give us auto translation on the comments, so we can reply to the people who watched the dub version, then commented in their language, and now we don't know, right? I'm supposed to copy paste over to Google Translate every time I get another question in another language. Even just with subtitles, this happens quite a bit. So all that to say, I think this is a really cool update, and it'll be interesting to see how things grow. Now, when it comes to AI, X is behind the curve and ahead of it at the same time. Let me explain. So, long story short, Gronk launched something called Aura, and it was up for like maybe 25 hours. I don't know. It was very quickly taken down. So the cool thing, and I'll show some examples of what this new image generation model could do, is it's apparently very good at generating real looking images. But going through all of the different X threads around this, the general consensus seemed to be it was an upgrade in terms of realistic looking images, but it was a downgrade in terms of everything else, which I'd rather have everything else than try and have AI generate something that's exactly realistic. And I think stylized AI photos do quite well on socials right now anyway. I mean, this is a silly recreation of one I found with the panda and the American flag in space. So it is fun to work with this. Now, just in terms of the access of this, you're not crazy if you don't see Aura anywhere in your interface. It's because it literally did disappear within a day of it being released. And I believe there's conjecture, of course, but I believe the issue was that there were some generations that were too realistic or too outside of what X will allow. Now, one of the advantages of Gronk is that it has less guardrails when it comes to what it will generate versus all the other platforms out there. I have, in fact, preparing this show, I will have 4 or 5 tabs up, one for Gronk, one for Claude, one for GPT, and then one for my current favorite, which is Canva's Dreamlab. I'd say 8 out of 10 pictures I generate, I wind up using Canva's Dreamlab just because I like the style it comes up with. But there are some times where I will ask for an image and 3 of the 4 will say, nope, sorry, can't do that. And Gronk will go, no problem, and steam ahead. And so in that regard, Gronk is winning in terms of the AI image generation simply because it's willing to do things other models won't. But if you're looking for a model that's very easy to use, that doesn't require like a lot of iterations to get what you want, Canva's Dreamlab, in my personal experience, has been the best. And so actually what I like to do is if I have an idea, I'll go to GPT 01 if I still have credits for that, and I will ask it to write an image prompt for me. And then I'll take that. I won't use DALL-E because I don't really like the images it generates. And I'll go over to Dreamlab and I'll drop that in. And then if Dreamlab says, no, sorry, that's against our TOS, then I'll take that and I'll go to Gronk. And of course, Gronk 9.9 out of 10 times will go, sure, buddy, here you go. So as of right now, Gronk is still just, I think, in 2.0 or 2.0 beta. They keep changing the names. But all that to say, when it comes to image generation, I still think Canva Dreamlab is number 1 right now. And I think Gronk is just going to keep getting better. And it's worth it as long as they keep it connected to X. I think as soon as they start doing XAI and they have it on another domain or another independent site, they're going to ask for more money. And in that instance, I'm probably not going to pay more money because I'm currently happy with the GPT setup that I have right now. But that does it for Gronk's update. And of course, all those updates still are available if you are using the free plan. Now, the final kind of update story before we get into policy and politics and whatnot is Instagram. So Instagram has decided that you can now schedule your text replies. So if you've ever been DMing someone and you're like, man, I don't have time to talk to them, but I will have time at like 8:55 tonight. Well, you can type up your reply and schedule it, and then it will go out at that scheduled time. Of course, this does not apply to any sort of media or GIFs, or I'm not sure if emojis mess with it at all, but it's a interesting update. And of course, if you use Instagram for any sort of business, it is nice to be able to reply to all those in the evening and then have your replies go out in the morning, so you're not stuck having customers emailing you or potential prospects emailing you or DMing you late at night. Oh boy, I definitely just said email instead of DMs. And so that does it for our Instagram updates and our updates in general for features and stories that are going to affect how we create content over the next few weeks. So kind of how I mentioned in the beginning, we'll shift and talk about policy and politics that's going to affect us in the coming years, right? And well, technically this one might affect us next month too, but just bear with me on it, right? So we have 2 TikTok stories here, and I'll do my best to go through this calmly because I'll admit to you, this is the second time I'm trying this. So to catch you up to speed, TikTok is going to be banned come January 19th. I don't know why some news sources are saying it won't. There's a lot of conjecture about what the incoming president may or may not do. But as of right now, no one can stop it. It's law. TikTok has to leave. And so what TikTok is doing is they've finally made it to the Supreme Court, and there are actually 2 cases here. So one is from TikTok's standpoint saying, hey, it's not okay that you ban us, especially because you being the Department of Justice, have not demonstrated how we are a threat to your national security, because that evidence is still classified. Nobody knows what it is, but there's apparently some evidence that TikTok is a national security concern because it's sharing data with a foreign government, obviously being China. The second part of this is from the creator aspect, where the creators are saying, hey, this is a violation of our free speech rights. We don't care if you think it's a national security concern. As U.S. citizens, we still have the right to use the platform. And I want to focus on this second one because I think it's completely valid. And I'll get to how you can actually have the best of both worlds and why I think that the actual solution was completely ignored. And so what we have here is the law went into effect quite a while ago saying TikTok has to sell. And so they've been going through the different courts and they keep getting pushed back saying, hey, this shouldn't be legal. This shouldn't be right. And so now the Supreme Court has taken TikTok's argument. They've taken the creator's argument. They've combined it into one. And these guys and gals have 2 hours each to try and make their case. Given the gravity of what this will set a precedent for, it's ridiculous to think 4 hours is going to determine whether or not us as Americans get to keep our free speech. It's kind of crazy to think about. And so the free speech argument is very simple and straightforward. We are allowed to say what we want, and we should be allowed to visit whatever websites we want, right? Because this is the U.S. saying you're not allowed to use this website or use this app. And so national security concerns still on the table. It's very, very simple. You simply say, hey, TikTok, we have national security concerns, and we passed a law about apps that are allowed to track location, to turn on the microphone, to access storage, to turn on the camera, right? Because this is the main concern over the security problems, the security around what TikTok is allowed to access on people's phones. Remember, every other social media platform asks for the same stuff, right? They all ask for the same information. They're all collecting the same information. The difference here is TikTok is not a U.S. company, so they're not sharing data with some 3-letter agencies. They're allegedly sharing data with an agency that doesn't belong to the U.S., and that's the problem. So the solution to allow for free speech and national security, I think, is quite simple. You have laws and regulations around what is allowed to be an app, And then if TikTok doesn't meet that, they don't get to be an app, but people can still access the website. And I think the reason that this, seems like a simple solution to me, but I think the reason that this solution was never on the table is because there are politicians who honestly believed they could force ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, to sell it to a U.S. entity, right? So this is also not just about national security, but this is also about power, right? Like the fact that TikTok does have a tremendous amount of attention of the U.S. populace along with the rest of the world. And so to have essentially a foreign social media platform have that much power, rightfully so, makes some, senators and Congress people uncomfortable. And so that's why I don't think the idea of just saying, hey, you're not allowed to be an app because we don't want you collecting all this data, but you can be a website, people can still post stuff to you, and we're all good to go. I think there's also some sort of weird power play in effect here. And so regardless of what happens with this particular case, I think it's incredibly concerning and scary that we are reaching a point where, yes, there are valid security concerns, but there's this whole argument of, freedom and free speech versus security. And unfortunately, when you go the security route, the next logical question is, who gets to decide when security is more important than free speech and freedom? And whoever has that power has a tremendous amount of responsibility, and we don't really know who that will be if this goes through. So hopefully the Supreme Court will at least pause the banning, and there is some sort of way forward where people are still allowed to speak their mind, even if it's a dangerous platform, even if it's bad for them, even if it's not necessarily a good idea from national security perspective. People are allowed to do silly things, right? And so all that to say, I am incredibly apprehensive and waiting to see how this plays out. Now, as a quick mention, just for kind of a comparison to what's going on in the States, something very similar is happening to TikTok over in the EU, where I guess there was a election in Romania that was overturned because there's some allegations of manipulation in terms of people running ads that aren't Romanian for one of the candidates. And of course, now the EU wants a lot of data from TikTok and wants access to their algorithm. So whether it's correlated or not, I don't know. I'm not going to put on a tinfoil hat here and say one way or the other, but I will say that we are fast approaching a world where the definition of freedom of speech and what constitutes interference in one thing or interference in another thing is getting quite muddied. And obviously I'm being a little vague because I am posting this to YouTube. And again, I just want to share these kinds of stories because this is going to affect how these platforms move forward. And of course, it will ultimately affect how we're able to, reach our customers and just enjoy content online. So it'll be very interesting to see how both of these play out and how the algorithms change as a result. So thank you so much for watching. Sincerely hope you got some value out of this episode. If you did make it to the end, please hit that like button, comment below with which stories are helpful and which ones aren't. And hey, if some of them are just kind of, oh, that's nice to know, I would really like to know that as well, because we do want to make sure that this is an awesome show for you, keeping you updated so you can get back to growing your business and not have to worry about silly rule changes. So until the next, keep building the business you love.